ang mga business sorry, ang mga business district before, 'di ba, sa mga provinces or mga municipalities and cities in the Philippines is that it is located in just one area since ang population nato before is just small pa man. And then as while the population is growing, murag na crowded naman good ang katong area. So sa present, akong na observe is that at the present kay more developments man gud ang nag-occur sa almost all cities. So same with Kalibo, daghan siya developments on the later part. So since wala na space kung asa ang katong CBD before, murag sa outskirt na siya nag-develop. Actually this sa kaning picture sa leftmost mo itong originally ang mga old na mga developments, and then sa rightmost kay mga new ones, and then outside of this picture daghan pa og new development since mao na lang to ang ang available na mga land.
Okay, okay.
Ana,
See,
yeah.
got it. Just to check, can you share the Google Maps of your kanang area?
Oh wait, I ano sure ha.
Yeah.
Naka-iPad man ko. Sorry, wait lang. Wait,
iPad
try.
ka? Okay, okay.
Oo, wait. Sorry.
No problem. Sige. So, what I'll be checking is if you can find the nuclei or the center. Okay, so Cebu City is very obvious as a yung old center. So Cebu City maps. So I think originally 1920s, maybe even like a bit before the World War, 1930s. So Cebu was developing in a concentric pattern. Okay, it's flatland, Raman. If you look at the 3D, it's fairly flat. Um, so, but the problem was it couldn't grow equally on all sides because we had the river here. So it would just like grow inland. So the old area is here, and then you have the sprawling developments here. So basically, this area here is the original city center. So you can just do this with like measure distance. And sort of the new city center is really, I would believe, um, Ayala or IT Park. So that you have the Cebu Business Park and the IT Park. I think also you can say the Kaning the Fuente Osmeña Circle area is also pretty big. Um, but definitely the most lived in or the area with the highest population, as we discussed earlier, is really Guadalupe, which is like somewhere here. Let me just highlight Guadalupe here. So it's very clear now, Guadalupe City, California. There's a Guadalupe City in California. It's very clear in Cebu City now. We started off here in the Colon area and then expanded into like Guadalupe, the Ayala area, Ayala Business Park, and the IT Park, Talamban. So it's now multiple nuclei, like because of the development of like new roads and the popularity of private vehicles as a transportation, as a mode of transportation. Okay, so for your just quick discussion, Lefe, can you show na your map of Aklan?
Wait, sir. Naka-share screen ako, sir, no? This one.
Oh, naka-share na. Okay. So I
So,
just like i-move lang si mong mouse as a old center then as a mga new centers.
as far as I know, sir, kay mao ni siya ang old before, especially kung asa ang Pastrana Park. That's
Mm.
the oldest park, and then ang Kalibo Cathedral. So mostly kay ang developments, actually mga small buildings naman siya before, but centered siya dira kung asa. And then karon kay actually ni ano na jud siya ni dako. So more mas daghan na actually ang mga higher or taller buildings diri dapit sa may City Mall Kalibo. And then now going output diri padung sa airport is
Mm-mm.
one dira. So actually mixed siya with ano commercial and residential actually.
Mm-mm.
Pero ang developments kay going out na jud sa original or sa old na dili.
Okay. Where is like in your like based on your experience lang, asa
Mm.
ang highest population sa Kalibo?
As far as I know, sir, is diri sa poblasyon, which is the Pastrana Park, and also this one, the Andagaw area.
The asa?
This this part, the poblasyon, sir, and then also the Andagaw na area.
Oh,
Diri
okay.
that.
The old center still has like a large population there.
Yes, also murag
Uh,
crowded na siya actually. Jud, sir. So going ang mga developments kay padung nagawas.
but slowly decreasing over time ang old city center.
Pero murag ano sa gihapon, sir, as is ang
Ah,
population
ni-maintain.
maintain, oo.
Mm, that's
And
interesting.
also,
Mm.
oo, I think ang Andagaw area, ang diri nga part, same with the population is dako siya population.
Mm.
Pero daghan pa siya og vacant spaces because I think mas dako iyang land area.
Oh, they allowed for
Mm.
kuan kanang open
Mm.
space.
Yes,
Open space. Mm.
kana
Okay,
sir.
good. So that proves to me that you understand the concept. So I'll put the grade in here. Next, Karen, could you do the same? Just show me your Google Maps and then tell me if your city is concentric, sectoral, or multiple nuclei. I have a feeling it's the
Okay.
same. Okay.
Yeah,
Most
it's the
of
same.
Filipino
Uh,
developments, urban developments, we develop in the same way.
okay, let me share my screen lang, sir, ha?
Mhm.
Hmm, okay. Clara na, sir.
Yep.
So, okay. So, this is the same lang pod with Cebu and Calibo. So, this is Butuan City. So, this is our old. Can you see my mouse?
Yes.
Yeah, this is our old city. So maklaro gyud nimo nga kuan siya, it's the typical planning na medyo grid,
Mm.
naka-grid ang roads. Then this is the center gyud. We have the park, then we have the church. Before this were kanang mga residential areas, then the commercial areas.
Mm.
So then we have our, pero due to kana flood prone na siya, so we're starting to go out of the old city. So this is one of the new areas along Barangay Libertad. So diri ko nagpuyo banda. So
Mm.
we have our hospitals na here. We also have the church, our public market, then offices pod.
Yeah.
Then we also have the in this area commercial areas pod. Yeah, Robinsons is near pod there nga center, new center. Then another one, so Kanisha is going to the airport. So here,
Mm.
airport is here. So may kanang multiple nuclei jud siya.
Yeah, you
Then
can
we also
clearly
have,
see. Mm.
yeah, then along the north area there is also another, the Barangay Ampayon. So you also have their own public market and kani mga housing and
Mm.
commercial areas. So yeah, that's pretty much it.
And it's really more spread out, no, compared to Cebu or Juan Calibo. How
Yes,
far
sir.
is the original city? For example, how far is the Butuan city, that city center, to the new one on the east?
Around, how do you measure
Right
this?
click nimo,
All right, click.
right click, measure distance. Let's say yeah, that's
Okay,
the
okay.
last one. Like somewhere in the
So
center of the old center. Yeah, okay, and then you measure how far it is to the one of the new centers.
along
Yeah,
Libertad.
just try to follow the road, yeah, something like that. Not super like detailed, pero kanang dul lang ba?
Oh no.
Okay.
Okay.
You can clear it and then do it again. Right click, clear measurement, and then measure distance. Just want to see how far it is.
So pwede
Yeah.
ra straight ra, sir?
Kana lang. Sige, sige.
Sige. So
Dapat,
around
yeah, there. Pila na.
maybe 500. Oh wait,
Half a
three point
kilometer.
ninety six, 3.96, around four
Okay.
kilometers, sir.
Oh, 4 kilometers.
Straight.
Layo good siya.
Yeah.
It's really kanang goes to show na it's going to be very car dependent kung ano na. How's the
Yes, sir.
kanang public transportation?
Medyo more on jeepneys lang ni sir, then
Mm.
kanang diri na sa mga kanang new city centers, pero within the old city center mga tricycle lang, tricycles, pero
Okay.
pag mugawas na multi-cabs na and jeepneys.
Okay. Ang population di Butuan City karon is how many?
Around 300 plus thousand, sir.
Okay,
Plus,
300 plus.
yeah. Then
So
this is the most populated barangay, Libertad, Barangay Libertad.
mm-hmm. So madada pa na 300. Once you go like over mga 400, di na mo ma-feel. I think Cebu City started feeling it's like traffic congestion. Let me double check. That's good na Karen. Thank you.
Thank you.
So it's made me think of kanang because Calibo is how what's the population of Calibo Faye?
Bitaw, sir, sorry. I-check na ko akong files.
Yeah. So this is something that we need to like. Even me, I don't even have it memorized. It's only because I did a discussion on it this morning. I'll share my screen. So the development patterns, like logically, is like the next thing we analyze after like identifying our goal of like sustainability and resilience, because then we can sort of try to predict where is the city going or like naturally like without any interventions if we just leave it alone how will the city develop and usually as we saw it's multiple nuclei and then it's up to the free markets whoever has the money will decide what gets built and where so usually it's car driven so it's either and then it's dependent on the geography if it's flat it goes as far as it can possibly go 4 kilometers is 4 kilometers drive. This is usually determined by driving time. So 4 kilometers is about, let's see, distance, travel time. Let's see. In minutes, let's say 5 kilometers in minutes driving. How long will it take to go 5 kilometers? So, running mo na siya. Canada, UK. Let's say you go a speed of 40 kilometers per hour, your time will be 8 minutes. So 8 minutes, 10 minutes. So that's why 5 kilometers is ideal because like it's a very convenient drive. Or if you think about it in like sustainability terms, once you go over a threshold, let's say like 500,000 or maybe 600,000 people, that will be that 8 minute drive will become almost double maybe or like even longer because there are a lot more cars on the road. So that's the danger there. For currently, I think Butuan, if I think the strategy there, just based on my experience, is to uh, I think magplan na gisa for like the next 20 years for mass transportation, public transportation, just improve from jeepneys to like bigger jeepneys or something. And it really eventually, if it like we get to like the 1 million people in a city, you really need a train station. So that's like long way down the line, maybe like 50 years from now. So that's the kind of the sort of forward thinking I hope to encourage you guys to do in your cities because like look at other cities in the Philippines, see what they're doing. And as we all know, sa Manila, I think they're getting their second or they already have their second train station, train line. Let me see historical population Cebu City. I think I have to go to Phil Atlas. They have historical population here. So let's see here. We started feeling, at least like in general media, we have newspaper articles saying na traffic na kayo sa Talamban, sa Cebu. And we started seeing that sa mga 2015-ish. Not really 2015, maybe as early as 2010. So you see that's 800,000 people on my screen here, 866 to like 799. So once your city goes on to that level, that's the time probably you need to introduce like if you can, bus lanes, if possible, but really mass transport, maybe light rail. But like the problem with light rail and mass transport is it's very expensive. The light rail development cost About, let's see, 43 million per mile. Let's see, miles to kilometers to km. So calculator. So 43, that's dollars pa ha? Let me double check. $43 million per mile. So $43 million times, what do you call this? 1.6, is that right? So let's say 1 kilometer, 0.6 miles. Let me write it down here. I'll just use pen. So for the 43, I'm just writing my one. 43 m equals 1 mile per mile. $43 per mile, and then you need to convert the mile to kilometers. It's let's see here. 1 mile is about 1.63 kilometers. 1.6. So divide, no? Am I correct? But divide. I'm converting the 43 million per 1 mile to one. Oh, no, I'm doing it wrong. Let me see. Sorry. Delete. So 1 mile, 1.06. Yeah, it's multiplied 1.069. So 43 m times 1.069. That's $2.9 billion per kilometer. So times 4 kilometers. For example, if we're going to put a light rail or like simple like train line in Butuan City times 4, so that will be $11 billion. If I'm not mistaken, double check lang. Am I doing the conversion right? That right? $43 million per 1 mile. I convert the mile for cancel ni siya duha. So that's let's see. Sakto ba? Double check la daw. Am I doing my math right?
Yes, I think so.
Yes, no. So imagine 11.9 billion dollars convert pa na nimo to peso. Okay. Let's see. That's 11.9 11,900. So that's billion na ta. So that's 1, 2, 3. Say next a billion trillion. No? 623 billion pesos for 4 kilometers lang. So that's really kanang, that's almost like not feasible na, or basically not feasible at that price. Recent light rail line. So what is a light rail? It's basically nanani. So hapit ata mag 1 trillion, like half a trillion pesos to create 4 kilometers of light rail. I think that only includes the construction cost. That doesn't include the maintenance. But hopefully, the way these like infrastructure systems get paid is with the fares of the people who use it. So hopefully, inika abot na sa 800,000 or 700,000 population, you charge, let's say, ang jeep karon, pila na jeepney fare karon, like one trip.
10 man siguro, sir.
10 na.
Hindi po ko
Like your
familiar.
normal lang na trip. Ako I also use cars, so I haven't drove the jeep since the pandemic. So let's say you have let's say not all of the people use it, like 50% lang. So 400,000 people, they use the train, the 4 kilometer train, light rail for like every day. You say you charge them 10, so that's 4 million per day. So hopefully mabayad ra. So time 365 days in a year. So nanaka sa, that's million, billion, 1 billion times. So you need to do it like Ila to atong calculation. Hopefully, ma-paid off siya in 600. Let me just make a note here. So how, sort of like the financials of it. So let's say 623, 327 billion na siya. BPHP. And then we're paying, let's say, we're earning from the fares of the people. 1, 2, 3, million, 1.4 billion PHP. 1.460 billion PHP. So we just go 623 divided by 1.4. Oh, no, wait. Let me just write it down. I prefer writing it down on paper, but since we're in a class, I want to divide it. So, and what I'm trying to say here is we pay 1.46 billion PHP per year. How many years do we need to get to 623.327? So so X years. Sorry, I'm just writing it in Paint. Let's see. So X years equals 623.327 divided by 1.46. So yeah, 1.46. That's really not a lot. 400 years is really not feasible. 623.37 divided by 1.46. Yep, that's 420 years. So definitely we can't do it at 10 pesos ang rate sa fare. So we have to increase it a bit. Say 40,000. Let's say 20 pesos ang bayad sa. If we double it. So if we double this, I think it'll be a little bit again for 460. Sorry, I'm just like, sorry. 1.46 times 2. I think it'll be better if I do it in Excel. Let's see here. For mas fast ang calculations. We need to pay off 623 billion, and hopefully usually ang time frame maybe mga 10 years mabayad siya or 5 years. 6.327 31.46. Then the years we need to pay it off is that divided by that. So let's try doubling this. 1 point equals 1.6 times 2. 200 years, not enough. I think we have to multiply it by 100. Yeah, I think the fare needs to be about 100 pesos to use the train, like back and forth. I think it's a bit much. Diba? Would you use 100 pesos? Mura na siyang taxi. But again, the taxis are a bit expensive food na karon na, like these days, like you take a taxi, it takes about like 200 pesos to get anywhere. So it might be competitive enough. But anyway, that's just me like thinking about transportation, and like that's just a quick sort of, and also a very rough outline of how these things get paid and how they get built. Maybe 10 years would be good, but usually 5 to 1. Maybe depending lang yun siya sa developer, how long do they want to get paid back. But anyway, the point is, like our city developments are really kind of, what do you call this? Currently, not very sustainable because we're very car focused, private vehicle focused. And then the multiple nuclei model, which is like popular, I would say popular across the Philippines, is very old, but we're still building the same way we've been building since like the 1970s. And then you can clearly see here, I have a resource here. Let's see, Philippines. You can see the Philippines sort of urbanization rate, or like, let's see here. You click this. Let me refresh. Hang on. Anyway, you'll see that the sort of urbanization and like population growth rates have kind of like stagnated in the there. So you see like a large people like coming in from the 60s to urban areas, and it's still going up a bit. And I think where was the one with the population growth rate? Oops. Mhm. Share populations in urban areas. There we go. This one. So this is a graph showing the share of people living in urban areas. So in most countries, most high-income countries, Western Europe and Australia and Japan, more than 80% of the population live in urban areas. Across most of middle-income countries like Eastern Europe, East Asia, North and Southern Africa, and South America, about 50 to 80% live in urban areas. In low to lower middle income countries, majority still live in rural areas. So as we saw earlier, sa population of the Philippines, we had like a big spike, and Cebu in general as well. We had a big spike in population in the 70s, and now we kind of see it like plateau here. So comparing it with Phil Atlas over here, so the first sort of graph here shows the population in like the 1970s is for Cebu, and you see it's been constantly increasing. So increasing population in Cebu, but in the general Philippines, this didn't really translate into growing the number of people living in urban areas. And I think with our discussion on urban development patterns, it's because the way we have developed our cities, like since the 80s, have been very sort of unsustainable, and then it kind of like it has hampered the growth of our cities, such that you can see Manila is very dirty. It has the highest population, but the quality of the urban space, the planning of the region has led has forced the development to like sort of stagnate. So in the Philippines in general, we see this like share of people living in urban areas sort of hover around like 46 to 45%. And this not only impacts sort of the built environment, this impacts the economy, the culture, the behavior of the people. And then where we jump in as urban planners, now that we recognize this pattern, is really to help like politicians, the developers, the people with the money, to like change their thinking. Now we shouldn't build anymore. Let me go back to my slides here. We shouldn't build anymore following the multiple nuclei model, because as I have like hopefully proven, na it really leads to nowhere. This sort of car dependent, what do you call this, market driven type of development is only good for those who have money. And then this is going to sound very socialist. It's very kind of bad for the middle to lower income people. It kind of forces people to like adopt a lifestyle that's like more expensive, more resource heavy. And like we can say that the Philippines is like growing-ish, but it could be growing at a much better rate. And like with proper planning, urban and regional planning, which is our subject, we could help it along. So let's compare it to another country, a bit closer to the Philippines. Let's say dili lang Singapore because it's very rich. Let's say Vietnam. You see, naapsa na tas Vietnam. This is share of people in urban areas. I think we can also look at GDP as a sort of metric for growth. Let's say Philippine GDP. Sorry, let me just let's look at this one is interesting. This one looks very bad. It's like we're currently shrinking even more, probably due to the pandemic. Let's see here. trading economics. Also, just need to double make sure that we're getting it from a good source. Uh, Wikipedia is good enough. It's more general, but at least it's safe. So let's compare that with what country do we have here? Vietnam. Vietnam GDP growth history. Let's look at it from a Wikipedia file. Hopefully, they have something similar. ResearchGate. Okay, they don't seem to have it on Wiki. GDP 2018. This is not exactly the same graph, but yeah, the point is being made. So ideally, this would be the same graph. Let's say GDP per capita of the Philippines, so that we're comparing apples to apples. GDP per capita Philippines. So we're going a bit more on the economic side of it. Okay, this is a lot better. So you see, we're a bit better than Vietnam actually in terms of GDP per capita. So you see, Vietnam is down here, Philippines is up here, and for some reason we're getting also compared to Ukraine. Let's see. I'll explore this more. No, not that. Let's see. I think we can customize which country to include. Hmm, World Bank, children employment, explore more. So you can see we picked up, oh, there's here a big increase in the 2000s with a dip in 2009, probably because of the global financial crisis, the 2008 to 2009 global financial crisis, and the dip probably due to COVID down here. This is the gross domestic production as fraction of GDP per capita. So pretty good, pretty healthy, like in terms of economic growth. But are we seeing that physically in our cities? And I guess that very obvious answer is no, because you can see in the map over here again. This is share of people living in urban areas. Most people are still probably we're still at 50% urbanization. And then, sort of on the flip side, we can start asking ourselves, should the Philippines be actually urbanized? Should we like develop more, or should we like preserve more our rural areas, really focus on our agriculture and like develop that instead of like more city and urban environments? That's also a question that I really don't know the answer to. So this will really depend on like on your like data, your experience, and like your personal preferences as well. But the one thing that we do know is that developing this way, multiple nuclei model, is really something that we should stop. So what are the solutions for this? Am I recording? Yes. Okay. I just needed to make sure. Sorry, wala gyud ko prepare sa slides. I just like spent the time like reviewing the data that I already have. So currently, new trends in urban development include one such movement called New Urbanism, and also the 15-minute city. 15-minute city. I think I have the slides ready for this actually. And we go to my modules. I was gonna save this for another discussion, but since we're already on it, let's like talk about it here. Oh, this is a bit more on site selections. I think I'm gonna edit it. But anyway. Oh, I have a video on it. I thought it was like a written sort of thing. But anyway, so we have the 15-minute city currently being sort of used in Paris, if I'm not mistaken. So let me check it here. Blog, learn more. So the idea is instead of building our cities around cars, like 5 minute, 8 minute, 8 minute, 10-minute drive, We should be instead focusing on more human powered modes of transportation, walking and cycling. And the reason why they chose cycling is because you can get further with a bike than you are walking. So over here, let me just quickly read it. Everyone living in a city should have access to essential urban services within a 15-minute walk or bike. The 15-minute city project is designed to help access focused urban transformations be what we need them to be, ambitious, inclusive, blah, 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 measurable. Anyway, the idea is all the commercial areas, all the residential areas, and the sort of everything in between, like where you need to work, where you need to sleep, where you need to get food, should be located within a 15-minute radius. And the good thing is, the bright side is we're already doing this in the Philippines. So I think Filipinos, as like one of my mentors said, I think it was one of the Espinas. Let's look at Cebu City again because it's the area that I'm most familiar with, are inherently sort of, we want to find the most convenient way to like live, to like move, and that even like we want to live in a very convenient way so much that we don't follow the rules, which can be good, can be bad, but like in terms of urban development, I think it helped us a bit. So let's look at the most populous barangay in Cebu City, Guadalupe, Cebu City. And let's take a look at their sort of urban condition. So it's a bit, half of it is mountainous over here to the east, and then to the west is really the built up area. There's sort of one or like two major highways. Let me just switch out to this view. You can see there's this like east west sort of um, road slash highway. I think it's just a road, Salvador Street, and then this like north south road, which is a Virama. And this is predominantly a residential area. But if you look at the street level, let's say down Virama over here, you can see that people are, because they want to be as convenient, they want to live in the most convenient way. These like high, like not really high density, but medium to low density residential areas are surrounded by like 7-Eleven, small sort of sari-sari stores. It's just that it's not as efficient because it's unplanned. It's like ad hoc. It depends on who wants to set up a store here. But let's say if you live um, what looks like an apartment building over here. This looks like an apartment building. You have access to laundry. You have access to food. The only problem, I don't think you have access to like a mall for like clothes and stuff. So you have to go to like Ayala, but it's not that far from this specific building per se. So even without like guidance, Filipino people have sort of eked out some kind of like convenient way of living. The only problem is currently the, I don't want to say the government, but let's say the whole culture of like urban planning and urban design is really kind of non-existent. So basically, we're leaving our citizens to their own devices. Like, "Kamu na yung bahala diha." Okay, we don't know how we should sort of like. I think we do know how to develop, it's just that we can't implement it. Like I think there's really no way around it. We have to talk about politics, is because our leaders like change so much, and each new sort of mayor or governor have such like radical ideas that no sort of clear development has been like put in place. I think in Cebu province we have the Metro Cebu group, and for the most part they're doing some good. They did like the feasibility study, the JICA study, but in terms of implementation, murag wala pa kayo. So basically, maybe ideas like this, like the 15-minute city, or we'll talk about another one like new urbanism, might be implemented in the future. The really our like biggest sort of problem really is kind of how do we implement it, and this is something that I don't have a lot of experience on. The most I can teach you guys is like how do we sort of redevelop our areas, and like for the most part, since this is an urban planning class, let's look at like the city scale. So hopefully, with your analysis of the provincial, regional, and the city and then barangay scale in the QGIS class, we can try to see how we can apply, like for example, the 15-minute city sort of development plan or the kaning new urbanism sort of development. Or just call it development plans or like um, movements or concepts for like a better urbanism. So new urbanism again is focused on walkable blocks, streets, and housing, and then they're like similar to the 15-minute city. It's more on people centric, less cars, but their approach is more general. The main idea of the main concept of new urbanism is the idea of let me see here. Let me open this a new tab. Hopefully it's high def. Oh, it's not high def. What they call like a density gradient. Let me see here. That's really low quality. Okay, this is better. Open image, a new tab. There we go. So the idea of new urbanism is really looking at it at a sort of almost provincial scale. I think it's closer to city scale actually. So cities should have, according to new urbanism, rural preserves or and rural reserves, meaning areas specifically for open space, suburban areas with larger lots, probably reserved for the kanang the super rich, the general urban, so high to middle income, and then the urban core. So similar to what we talked about in the modules, hopefully nakawatch mo sa video ato. Kaya naman siya videos. Anyway, the text also says that the low income usually tend to live closer to the city center because they don't have the money for like transportation costs. So they walk or they use public transportation. So the 15-minute city is developing this further and really like advocating for cycling and walking. So I think we have a better diagram here. Let me just Google it for you guys. City plan. Make this. Okay. Pick something like this. It's in French because they're applying it in Paris. This one. This one is a good diagram. I need to convert this into a module, but I really just ran out of time this morning. Okay. So there's a walking graph, a biking graph, electric vehicles, and then the cars. So the idea is you have several sort of sheds that are like within 15 minutes. And within those sheds, you have a 5-minute radius walk, a 5-minute area, and then the 5-minute dwelling units. So in this sort of 5-minute walk, you would have about 1,000 at what do you call this AC. Let me double check what these like units mean. So ideally, you would have like a certain number of dwelling units based on the distance that you need to move, like from one 15-minute shed to like another 15-minute shed. Population in this sort of like scale at the walking scale about 2,000 to 23,000. So that's like a big gap there. Biking is like even further. So the radius is like 1 mile to 3 miles. Again, we have to convert it to kilometers. So that's 5-minute radius is 1.6 kilometers for biking. And then for 15 minutes, it's 3 times 1.6. 3 times 1.6. About 4.8 kilometers. Is that right? 1 kilometer. Let me open up my thing again. 1 mile, 2 km. Yeah, 1.6. Yep. Oops, sorry. And then in the electric vehicles, basically electric powered bicycles or very light sort of transportation, you can go a bit farther at 1 and 2/3 one and two-thirds miles, and then 5 miles like for 15-minute radius. So there is now sort of like a measurement as to how big your sort of residential and commercial sheds would be. Whereas in new urbanism, they just say that there needs to be a gradient. How big the gradient is, we don't know. But the new development is that we should be designing around 5 minute walk, 15-minute walk, 5 minute bike, 15-minute bike maximum. And we sort of just move away from private vehicles. So that's the current thinking now. Any questions? Sorry, it's a bit messy. I didn't have time to prepare slides. Like, you have questions about. Oh, there's a question here. 89,000 for Calibo. Oh, that was like a message from earlier. I guess the question would be, how feasible is this in the Philippines? And then, in my opinion, I think it's definitely more feasible than having a railway system or a bus system. I think the bus system is it's already happening, so I think the bus system is also feasible. But compare that with other modes of mass transportation like the train or, yeah, it's really just train. Um, the bike system is a lot cheaper. Anyone can own a bike. I think bikes these days cost around anywhere between like the cheaper ones anyway, 10K. And maybe you can just borrow one for like 5K. But anyway, that's the whole sort of thinking in about an hour's discussion. Now we need to move away from driving and really go back to like people-centered design. So sorry, I stopped sharing my screen for some reason. I thought there was going to be questions. Open in new tab. And what did it say here? I'll just read this quickly for the sake of the video. It's here. So the 15-minute city may be defined as an ideal geography where most human needs and many desires are located within a travel distance of 15 minutes. While automobiles may be accommodated in the 15-minute city, they cannot determine its scale or urban form. Based on automobile travel, most metropolitan areas may be 15-minute cities. I think they're just saying to keep the cars out. Or retrofit like car-centric cities to accommodate cycling and walking. So instead of like automobiles, the 15-minute city is defined by the ability to provide access to all human needs by walking or cycling for a quarter hour or less. So transit should be provided within the 15-minute city, but cannot accurately define its scale for reasons that will blah, blah, blah explain later. So muna siya, focusing again on like more people-friendly transportations and like moving away from the car. I think I'll just share this here as well. And don't worry, I'll prepare a slide for it. Nagana ko homework. Ako na yung mabuhat sa homework. So that's basically it for urban development patterns. So moving away from the car, going back to the bicycles and walking. I'll leave these tabs open because I needed to make my presentations for later. And then that also leads me to another thing. I wish Joseph was here because he's the one that really experienced with I wanted a discussion on disaster risk management. But what do you call this? The most affected sort of cities the most affected city, at least from what I can tell in the Philippines, is really Tacloban. And our like one student here supposed to be here is from Tacloban. I think he's just busy with like actually doing design work for his city. Like during the tropical depression during Holy Week, grabe kayang baha sa Tacloban. And I think he shared some images. So hopefully he can join us. It's already 4:30. But in general, I think I'll just share my, what do you call this? I can announce our sort of final project. It's already May. Classes end on let's see here. Classes end on May 28th. May 28th. So that's 1, 2, 3, about 3 weeks, so about a month. So igo wrap. So what I'm hoping to do for our final project, we'll talk about another factor, the disaster risk management and heritage. Hopefully we can do that today. But I can like generally describe it lang sa. So let me open up my final, let's see here. Final design, final plate, green field. Here we go. For our like final assignment, we won't do something as detailed as this. This one's like 43 pages. But using your output from the QGIS class, Joseph will have, our other student will have to do something different because he's not enrolled in the QGIS class. We can sort of provide a sort of roadmap for development in our respective cities, similar to what JICA did over here. Mhm. So, do you guys have copies of the JICA proposal na? The JICA roadmap study?
Yes, sir. Na-send ni mo last time.
Okay, so we'll just do a simpler version of this. I'll highlight the, what do you call this? The requirements. So we'll provide the images using QGIS, so we can show the regional, and then the provincial, the city, and then the barangay. Let me just be something like that. We actually don't have anything like this in the JICA model, but over here we have, this is what we did for my thesis, not really thesis, like sort of like a group project proposal, major subject in my course, Sydney. So we looked at it from a city scale. So we have the project site here, and your project site will be your kanang, let's say, since this is urban planning, let's just choose a. I'm deciding whether we choose a municipality, city, or kuan barangay scale. I think barangay scale is more urban design, so let's stick with um, city scale. So in Sydney, there are several kanang sort of, there's like the greater Sydney area, and the city itself is separated into sort of municipalities as well. They just call it like councils. So let me just show you how that looks like. Sydney Council's map. So I think this is a good sample here. It's very small. Yeah, nah. I don't know why they don't have a big. Anyway, I think this one will work. It's in a different language, but you get that picture. So you have the city of Sydney here. You have these ones in numbers, and then the different sort of uh, municipalities, kunuhay. They just call them councils. So Balcom Hills, Blacktown, etc., etc. And that's what we're doing in this drawing over here. So this is Kellyville, the project site. It's a combination of two sort of councils, and this was determined by our professors. Now, this will be your project site. Analyze it, and the main reason why they chose this area is because it will have a new train station. I think it got completed 2019, like late 2019, like near December. So this area here highlighted in orange, this orange circle, will have a new train access, and will connect Castle Hill, a major city, a major center, and Rouse Hill, a town center, sort of like their equivalent of like barangays, like major barangays, high densely populated with a one, with its own mall, and I think suburban areas as well. And then Windsor Town Center will also be connected by this new train station. So I think I have a map for this. Let me just zoom out. So for our purposes, our final project, maybe you know some new projects, only those that you're allowed to share. Maybe for example, since Faye is handling the BRT, BRT ba ito yung project, Faye?
Yes, sir.
You can use some tentative. I know, only share what you're allowed to share. I don't want you to get in trouble. Or maybe you can make your own assumption na asa nindot ipaagi ang BRT. Let's focus it on I think what do you think is better? Do you guys want to focus in Cebu? Because for me, I would be more comfortable using Cebu because I have more data sa Cebu. But I'm also willing na your final project will be in your specific cities as well. Okay, you already have the QGIS maps for it.
Ako, sir, kay need pa to decide if
Okay, we'll just decide it later. But money ang sort of flow niya. So let's identify like a municipality, maybe identify some like new infrastructure projects that are going through that area. And then we try to create sort of a new sort of development path, like just like very general in the kanang city scale. Like for example, let me open up my where is my QGIS map here? I closed it. QGIS. For example, for the map I made earlier, actually made it over here. Outputs. Where is my PNG? I don't know where it went. Sorry, messy a bit. Open. Joining data and city. Barangay maps, barangay city. Okay. So as we discussed earlier, Cebu City, we don't really see the roads in this map, which is a problem. Let's open street map. Kanila sa. I wonder if makita siya. No, it's not really over. Oh, it's because it's on top. I wonder if we can reduce the opacity, the properties, transparency here. Apply. That's a bit. Apply. Okay. Something like that. It's a bit messy, but you can see Guadalupe is here, highly dense in red. You see Sambaguan, Santa Cruz, a bit less dense. Sambag 2 is highly dense. So we can see the movement, the urban development pattern is really moving inlands, going this way, northwest. So there's a lot of people here. The problem is they all work either in Ayala here, near Barangay Luz, Hipodromo, and Barangay Lahug. And then they have to use either the Ramon Duterte Street, basically the capital road, or they have to go down from Virama down to Fuente Osmeña Circle to get to the city center, or some the old city center, like maybe where some of them work, like government officials. I know most of the doctors work here in Fuente Osmeña. That's the Chonghua Hospital. I think also Vicente Soto. We have Veles in this area in the capital. So a lot of people, doctors specifically, are coming here. And then the main problem is our roads are just that. Capital Road, V Rama, the Fuentes Mena Circle. If you live a bit up here in Banilad and Talamban, you basically only have the M. Cuenco Avenue, or basically the Talamban Road. So just based on my experience, I'm just thinking about this now. The new development pattern for Cebu City should be to include more commercial areas, more offices in the sort of highly populated barangays. So Guadalupe, I think we're already seeing that. So if we go to close this, I need that for later. We go to Guadalupe, you see some like commercial areas, but it's still very much sort of focus on residential. So these new towers, they're residential towers. And if you go down to their ground floor, they have some commercial areas, but it's usually kanang foodstuffs, nothing really kanang office, nothing really with like health services, nothing for like education. I think there's a school here, pero it's I think just grade school level. Let me see. They have their police station over there, barangay hall, small college. Where's that Guadalupe school? Somewhere here. Guadalupe School, elementary school over here in Virama. There it is. And I think it's only good for, from the looks of it, it looks like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 times 4, 16 times 4, 64 classrooms. Maybe there's another 40. Let's say like they have 200 classrooms. And that's supposed to be for a population of Guadalupe population, I think almost 70,000. Guadalupe population. So 70,000 people, definitely not a lot. We will look at the age structure. Let's go to Phil Atlas. Go to Guadalupe over here, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Do. Demographics are here. Let's see. Let's count people who would be going to elementary school, like 10 to 19, maybe. I think 10 to 14 actually Guadalupe for elementary school. Let's say we include the 5 to 9 as well. Maybe they have like a kindergarten there. So that's only like 8 plus 9, 17%. So high school, I don't think there is a high school here. We'll check. Guadalupe High School. They do have, no results found. Is that the high school over here? What's this? Barangay Hall, Talunasan. So it's no longer in Guadalupe. So I think the next step would be to provide more diverse services. You could say that your area might need a new high school, might need a new college, but just looking at the key thing here is you need to look at the demographics. So in Guadalupe, for example, most people are in the 15 to 30 range. So 15 to 30, that's 9 plus 11, 20% plus 9, 29% plus 7, 36%. So a big chunk of the population is here. So that's people in high school and college. Some of them might be already working, but if you're in your 30s, you might be working not the white collar jobs, unless you're like a nurse or a doctor, but like that's also a bit not the majority of the population, I think, just based on my experience. So my recommendation for sort of Cebu City as a whole would be like in these areas in red, they need to have their own sort of, if it's not a school, maybe a like vocational center, somewhere where they can train. And then maybe some more short courses, like what do you call this, like summer schools or kind of trades, it's whatever. Because like I'm pretty sure a large chunk of these like populations are also kind of from the low to middle income families. So if they can like work here and maybe learn here, they don't need to travel. It would reduce the number of people using the roads, because like the doctors, you can't move the hospital, the sort of the lawyers, you can't move the lawyer offices or the big buildings. So really need to focus on the masses, the middle to low income families. So maybe Guadalupe will need like a new high school. They definitely have the population for it. In La Hug, what's the population of La Hug? Lahog population. Lahog population. It's 45,000. I don't think they're good enough. They don't have a high enough population to support high school. Usually, in my experience, 50,000 above is a good for high school. Um, Actually, I would even say like 100,000 is required for like a new high school. But yeah, it's new institutions like schools and also more diverse commercial spaces. So if we look at La Hogue, I think this is more mixed than Guadalupe. So if you look at La Hogue over here, da-da-da, turn on the satellite view. So we got some residential areas over here. We have the I think IT Park is IT Park is over here. Doing it in 3D is a lot easier because you can really see where the residential and the commercial areas are. Maybe let's see here. Is there a road here? Let me turn this zoom out. So with this view, you can see that La Hogue is divided by this river. What's it called? The Kamputha River, like geographically, almost down the center. And then traveling east-west is very difficult because of the river. I think there's only one road that connects east-west, like what do you call this properly? This I think this Sudlon Road here. But the rest here are like very kanang subdivision type development. So middle to high income, I think. You look at it. Oh, this is actually more middle to low income. Just looking at the quality of the housing stock. Yeah, a bit more low to middle income. And it's not really like subdivision. I think it's more like um, free market sort of type of development. And then everything here is kind of catered to middle income to low income like businesses. You have the call centers, I think even more residential areas here. But compared to Guadalupe, which is down here, I think Guadalupe is more sort of residential focus, but at least La Hogue has a bit more commercial areas. So the way to do La Hogue would be to improve access between like the commercial area, something like that. So maybe doing the whole municipality might be too difficult, just like from this exercise. Just me like thinking about it. Maybe you can focus on two barangays and see how one barangay can help the other and vice versa. So we'll come up with something like this, where we create like a map of identifying where the growth centers are, and then usually these are the highest populated areas in your city, and see how what kind of resources can they share, or what kind of like proposals can we do so that either like accessibility becomes better, or there's like some kind of management plan to help more sustainable growth, to drive us away from like private automobile development and more like cycling and walking. And I think another way to do this would be to identify how big the areas are. Like for example, if you see the Guadalupe is a lot bigger than La Hogue, so there will probably be they need to have like what do you call this? More cycling sheds or more transportation provisions to move from one area to the next. And also, I just realized La Hogue and Guadalupe are divided by two rivers. We have the Guadalupe River here, and then the Camputa River here. So that's probably why they developed in the way that they did, like more separate because of their geography. It just like naturally divides them. You can see there's not much roads connecting Guadalupe to La Hogue in this like a bit more northern part here where the rivers are. Their only connecting road is the Ramon Duterte Street, or basically we'll just call it the Kanang Capitol Road, and not much else. Everything else you have to like uh, come down from the mountains into the city before they can go to La Hogue. So there is one road here, but it looks like a very kind of it actually ends in a dead end. So the road I'm looking at, if you can see my mouse, is this Andres Abellana extension, but it ends up with a dead end here, dead end. like through Friendship Street. That's what it's called apparently. And then it ends with a dead end in a kaput house. So really no east-west connection. I think it's also because of the terrain as well. If I turn on the terrain over here, let's look at, okay, you can see this is Lahog. Guadalupe will be somewhere here, and you can see the bumps here, meaning it's like a lot hilly between Guadalupe River and Kaputha River. But I think it's also at the same time the lower area is a bit more flat. Definitely, when you get to the capital, it's all flat. But the main problem between connecting Lahog and Guadalupe is really the rivers. So you can also say that it's not a good idea to connect them, something like that. Anyway, it's 4:45. So muna, that's my idea for our final output. So we'll use our QGIS maps, our discussions on urban development, and next week we'll talk about disaster risk management and planning hierarchy. That's like general how the plans would work. Who do you need to go to? But I'm sure both of you already know that because you already work in the government. But it'd be nice to like have a refresher as well. Okay, let me double check here. I think that's pretty much it for
I'm sorry.
this week. Yep.
Just clarification. So our final project would be we're going to propose ang mga developments and for sustainability and under na i-apply na mga ang katong mga lessons natin before. It's
Yeah.
either the barangay or municipality or the city that we will choose.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
for now, just think about which one do you choose? Do you want to choose your local city or do you want to choose Cebu City? And
Yes,
then the output will be kanang PDF, maybe like 5 pages lang. Not super kanang heavy because I know you have your thesis put, but I just want us to apply what we learned. So it's basically bitang testing na to na how do we go through the process of making a um, urban planning proposal or maybe an urban planning kanang thesis even. And if you want, we can also align it to your thesis. If your thesis is like if you're in the thesis program for urban planning or um, yeah, something like that.
Copy,
Okay.
sir.
Okay. So I'll stop recording here. I'll prepare